Right, time for our political roundup now. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Jonathan Gibson. Good morning to you.
Good morning, David.
So, shall we start with this amazing story about Chris Pincher, which just gets crazier and crazier?
It is unbelievable. I mean, this morning there's been reveals that he's harassed 6 more Tory MPs, so it's not just the 2 men that he got drunk on Thursday night. There's the further 6, and there's also, even dating further back to that, there's been reveals that he's sexually harassed, allegedly, several members from the Rower, the Conservative Rower.
That's Alex Story.
Exactly, yeah. And another Labour MP who he touched his knee apparently at another point, so it's just unbelievable.
And do you think these are just going to be drip drip? They'll still keep coming, there'll be more and more and more?
I think so, because it clearly seems to be a pattern in behaviour, and it's something that has taken far too long to deal with, clearly. And when it was flagged to the Ethics Committee, when he was for the first round being appointed as a whip for the Tory, as a deputy chief whip, it essentially passed through. And even though members around the senior Tory party knew, and they have expressed that they knew about the concerns, it was Dominic Cummings, who I'm not sure is necessarily the most reliable source, but still he said recently that Boris used to refer to him as Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. So it's just unbelievable, because clearly there was some level of awareness from Tory MPs and from people. He had a reputation.
So apparently it's because Pincher was such a supporter of Boris Johnson that Boris hasn't taken more draconian action against him. Interestingly, Winger67 has messaged in and saying, Johnson says he knew nothing about Pincher. Why didn't he know? He's supposed to be the Prime Minister.
I mean, this is exactly Neil Parish's point when he's arguing that there's double standards between the way he was treated and the way that Pincher is being treated, because he's saying even before there was an investigation, even before, like, it was made official, he was forced to lose the whip, and he resigned. Whereas here, it was a whole 24 hours after he resigned as the chief whip. He still hadn't been removed, suspended from the Tory party, and people are arguing it's because he's such a loyalist and he's like an arch loyalist, whereas Parish, in some ways, wasn't in the same way.
Absolutely right. And of course the extraordinary thing is that it seems that although he's lost the whip, he's still standing as an independent. I've been asking everyone this morning, but do you think he will actually resign?
I mean, the pressure surely has to pile on, and it really has to kick in. It's just shocking that MPs are the ones that are supposed to represent our country. They're supposed to represent us as individuals. And if you're standing there as an MP representing a constituency, you're in a position of power, and so surely you have a responsibility to behave morally, to behave decently, in line with the law and in line with the values that we as a country want to support. So it's just unbelievable that someone could be allowed to carry on being an MP. I think there is a watchdog investigation into his behaviour, and he may be forced to stand down, but at the moment it's just unbelievable that he hasn't yet already stood down.
So just talking, you know, obviously there are a lot of young people in the House of Commons, lots of people who are researchers and staffers and so on. What I can't get through to my head is it because we've got the wrong people going into politics who are then in the House of Commons, or is it that actually they get drunk on their own power and then behave inappropriately? You've been there, you've seen what goes on. Is it because they think they're untouchable?
It's difficult. They do say that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Yes,
I'm not saying they have absolute power at the moment, but there has been a real series of incidences over recent years and even months, ranging from the Imran Khan scandal. There was obviously Owen Paterson, Neil Parish, of course. There's been a whole range of these. So clearly it's not just a one-off isolated incident within the party, and there has been several cases. So there needs to be further investigation into this. There's lots of psychological evaluation, I'm sure you could do, of the people, whether it's them going into politics, and of course it's not all MPs, but it does seem to be a fair few, which is pretty shocking.
Extraordinary, 52 under investigation.
Is it not leadership, though? Because they obviously feel they can behave like this. Oh, wow. And if they didn't feel they could behave like this, they wouldn't behave like this.
Well said, Doctor. And let's move on to Starmer now. Tell us the story about Starmer.
Yeah, so Starmer is essentially rejecting claims that he is working to purge anyone left of Tony Blair, essentially, out of his party. And it's framed in quite an interesting way in The Guardian, because he's saying that he wants to unite the party and he wants to bring it together and he wants to weed out less effective politicians. But essentially in doing so, we saw the result in Corbyn's election. So maybe some of the less effective politicians, the ones that are less representative of the population, and so on the hard left. I mean, Momentum, we saw it as a group, it's so powerful for the size of support and for the amount of people that actually would associate themselves with that group. So he could well be purging people further on the left. First of all, there are still members of the hard left who are still in power. Angela Rayner is just one example of that. And so he hasn't completely gotten rid of anyone who's further to the left of Tony Blair. But
You're right. Momentum really unhappy. This is a brazen, systematic attempt to exclude anyone left from Tony Blair. But the point is that actually the electorate dismissed them. They didn't want that kind of politics. I mean, politics is won and lost in the centre ground, isn't it? And I think Starmer has a point. You want good candidates. Although, quite frankly, I don't think Keir Starmer is really the life and soul of the party, is he?
No, maybe he's not the most charismatic man. But
okay, that's a little more politically correct.
But he's surely being quite vigilant in a sense that he dismissed a MP, or he didn't dismiss him, but he didn't longlist him to be an MP, for example, there for a seemingly small reason. So one of them liked to tweet saying
Jonathan, I have to cut in. I have to cut in. Thank you so much. That was your first time. Amazing work. Thank you very much, Jonathan. This is Talk TV.